Welcome to today's edition of 3 Minutes of Halacha. Yesterday, we learned the halacha of interruptions, of whether or not you're allowed to respond to a person in the middle of saying Shema. We saw there was a distinction between in between the paragraphs and in the middle of the paragraphs, but ultimately, we also learned the halacha as taught by the Mishnah Berurah, that nowadays etiquette is such that people understand that when you're saying Shema, you don't need to interrupt it to be able to respond with a hello or to answer a question. However, the question remains, what about things that are important parts of davening? Can we respond, for example, to a Kaddish or a Kedusha or a Borchu while we're in the middle of saying Shema? The Maharam was of the position that you can't. And the reason was very simple. We're in the midst of praising God during Shema. Why would we interrupt it for a different form of praise? And yet the Rosh disagreed. And the Rosh said that these are Dvarim Shebikdusha. These are aspects of davening that require a minyan and are of a higher level of sanctity and should be considered similar to the halacha of responding to a person for whom you are in awe because of the yira, as we discussed yesterday. And therefore, the Rosh said, Kaddish, Kedusha, and Borchu, you're allowed to respond to, even in the middle of Shema. However, even there are some limitations. And so, for example, when it comes to the question of Kaddish, the first section of Kaddish before Titkabel is the key of Kaddish. Everything else is considered just custom. And therefore, in terms of answering to Kaddish, you can answer Yehei Shmei Rabbah, you can answer Amen up until Titkabel. From that point on, you would not interrupt your Shema. When it comes to the Kedusha, you're allowed to say it. When it comes to Borchu, you're allowed to respond with Baruch Hashem HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. However, there is a debate as to whether or not you can answer the very same Borchu to a person who's getting an aliyah to the Torah. Why should this be permitted? Well, again, we remember the Rosh's position, that these are similar to aspects of yira, of being in awe of someone else, in this case, being in awe of the experience. And yet the Maharshad explains that there's another factor, that if you don't answer to these important aspects, sections of davening, it is a bizayon. It's disgraceful to the people in your tzibur, in your congregation, and to God. And in fact, Reb Chaim Kanievsky rules that it's not merely that you can respond to Kaddish, Kedusha, and Borchu while you're saying Shema, rather you must respond. That's the halacha.